Hi, everyone. Welcome to Intrinsic's Resource Management webinar. It looks like we still got a couple people joining on audio, but we're going to go ahead and get started with the introductions, and then hopefully everyone will be on board before the demo starts. Today, we're going to focus on resource demand forecast. This is actually a part one of a two-part series. Later in September, we're going to do the second part, which will be the capacity planning. My name is Greg Coey. I'm the Vice President of R&D Solutions at Intrinsic, and presenting today is Andy Grubb. Andy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Greg. So, hello everybody. My name is Andy Grubb. I am a consultant for Pharmica Consulting, and I have many years of resource management experience, which is why I'm the one presenting today, and why I'm, kind of heavily involved with the Intrinsic tool that you're going to see today. So, I think we're ready to start at this point.
Yes.
Everyone has joined, Greg?
Yes, it looks like most people are joined and should be able to hear us. Just some housekeeping notes. Everyone will be on mute throughout the webinar. If you do have any questions, you can expand the side panel on the right, and there should be a place to submit questions. I'll be monitoring that, and I'll feed them through to Andy at the end of the webinar, and then he'll address those in the last 5 to 10 minutes. Go ahead, Andy.
All right, thanks a lot. So welcome everyone. Like Greg said, this is part one of the Insights RM webinar. Today we're going to talk about the demand forecasting piece of the tool. Before we get into the actual demo, I want to give you a little bit of background about who we are exactly. So you've probably seen the branding on the tool and the webinar invite for Intrinsic Clinical Systems. There's also Pharmica Consulting. They are sister companies. Intrinsic is the software product side. Pharmica is the services consulting side. I'm a consultant for Pharmica. I have been for many years. And as we did a number of projects for other people, we realized that there was a hole, right? So we were doing resource management projects. People were either using Excel, or they get to a point where Excel didn't work anymore. They realized something was missing. The only other option were these $1 million off-the-shelf solutions, really expensive, really difficult to maintain. You need a large group to, keep the software running, keep it up to date, manage the algorithms and the programming behind the scenes. There was nothing in the middle. There was no way to kind of step your way up towards a tool that big. So that was the problem. The solution was what we came up with, and you're going to see here today, Insights RM. It's designed to be easy to use and give you a large majority of the functionality you would hope to get out of one of those super expensive tools. So, what exactly can we do? You think of the suite of project management tools. You see all the pillars here. We do the things in blue. Timelines, the scheduling piece, that's, there are already products that work great for that. Project Server, almost everyone uses that or some flavor of that. We didn't want to reinvent that. We'll take your data from Project Server, from your scheduling software, ingest it, and then do all these other pieces, right? So the demand forecasting piece, which we'll talk about today, capacity planning, which is part two, scenario planning, which is really cool to see. We'll show that today. And then the reporting piece that everyone expects, everyone's used to. You'll see a lot of that today. Time tracking is a separate tool, but time tracking data can of course be integrated into what you're going to see today. So I don't want to spend too much time on the slides. I really want to show you the demo itself. That's where it really shines. So let's get into it. So let me open up our tool. Okay, so here we are. This is the tool itself. It is browser-based, completely in the cloud. It lives in the Microsoft Azure cloud. So you would get a login account, that's federated with your native company account. Once you're registered and signed up, you simply are logged in every time you visit the site. You clear your cache, use a different browser, you'd have to log in again, but it behaves just like you would expect for all the other different types of sites that you use every day. Like I said, everything's in the cloud. So when you first log in, this is the page you're presented with. This is what we call the domains page. Domains are subsections of the tool itself. Each domain can have its own schedule data, can have its own set of algorithms, its own set of employees. They can all be separate, but however, they can roll up to a higher level. So you can see right away that there is a child-parent relationship in some of these domains. Each of these kind of colored boxes here. Each of the children has its own separate individual data that can all then roll up to the top level. The domains, you can use as many or as few as you like. There could be security or data reasons why you wanted to separate a domain into something different. We have clients that just stick everything in one domain, find it easier to use that way. Whatever works, it can be built inside the tool. Today we're going to be looking in the clinical development domain here. I have some decent demo data to show. So here in the page, you would only see the domains that you have access to. So if I was in medical writing, I would only maybe see the medical writing and then the top domain. I wouldn't see any of these others. And then you just click to enter into the domain that you want to see. So you're immediately presented with this dashboard, this kind of landing page dashboard. You can see the different modules up top for navigation. The landing page module has a series of canned reports that kind of come with the tool out of the box, right? Demand versus head counts, things you would kind of expect to see. There's also a series of reports that I've created personally inside the tool and then saved. You can generate and save your own reports inside here. You can see there's a lock symbol. So this is just my personal report. These two don't have that symbol. These are reports that I've created and then published. So anyone else that has access to the domain has access to these reports as well. There are also some kind of usability modules over here on the side to kind of give you a quick glance at what might be some interesting data. The first one here, available employees. This will show employees in the given month that have available capacity. That'll come more into play in part 2. The work items ending soon. These are work items, excuse me, which is our shorthand for studies that are ending in the next, I think it was last month, this month, and next month. And these are just 2 requests from clients for kind of quick links to things that they use frequently. But once you enter the tool, this is what you see. You might navigate to a report quickly that you know you're going to use. But the main modules, as I said, are up top here. There's demands, which we're going to cover today. Scenarios, which we're also going to cover today. Staffing, which is really in part 2. This is the capacity planning piece. And then there's a whole series of kind of configuration options here in the management module. So let's jump right into demand. So when I pick the demand module, it immediately loads, refactors all my data, and shows me everything. So this is all our demands, the entire schedule, whatever schedule we've added to the tool, run through every single algorithm, every single role that we've programmed all at once. And that's why you see it, right? Everything all stacked up. It looks nice. There's a lot of data here. It's not necessarily super useful to have everything, on top of each other like this, but this is just kind of your default top level view. You'll see as I hover over any of these segments, you get a pop-up to tell you exactly what you're looking at. Let me expand the legend here so you can see what the colors actually stand for. So these are all the different roles that we're modeling in the demo here by color. And as I hover over, you see for in December, the CRA, we're going to need 56 CRAs. If I can go to January, also 56, 58 in February, and then it drops. Next March, we're down to 53. And these are in FTEs. And then you can see as I kind of move through, everything changes month by month, role by role. So like I said, this looks cool, right? To see everything rolled up, not super useful. So what would be useful? Well, let's just look at, excuse me, let's click one role. So with just a click, I can filter this down immediately, and now I'm just showing a single role, CRA. which is obviously pretty useful, right? If you're a line manager or a functional manager, you can come in and take a look at exactly what it is you're interested. And I can just kind of scroll through, no contractor data, scroll through my different roles here and see their various values as I go through. That's pretty nice. Let me reset all my data here. Go back to the top level. On the right, you can see I have a filter panel, which has a number of filters and pivots in here. These are all metadata categories based on whatever schedule data I might be importing into my, with my schedule. In Project Server, you probably have, 100 columns with all these different metadata points about each of your studies. You have country and region and therapeutic area and phase and probability of success and probably 100 other ones that are specific to your company. We can pull all that data in and then use it as filter points here. So if I'm only interested in showing North American demands, I just simply pick it and filter down to it. What about North American outsourced demands? Again, another filter. What about North American outsourced CRA demand? So you can see really quickly I can narrow down exactly what it is I'm interested in seeing and kind of get down to a real low level here. And again, as I hover, I get the exact values that I'm interested in. We have what excuse me, what we call filter sets, which are this drop down at the top here, where I can kind of save a couple, or well, as many as I like, canned filter combinations. You can see I have a couple in here already, and these are just kind of quick save things that I might instead of setting up my filters every time, I can save exactly what it is and then come back to it. So this is forecast for Italy for 2021, and just by selecting that, I've already done this filtering and then saved it like this, right? So it's only including 2021. It's only showing the country of Italy, and showing all my demand here over time. So you can really set as many of these as you like, and they're persistent. They're saved here, and it's just for me. It's just for this browser session. So any other users won't see these. So this is the demand panel. Again, this is all of my demands, all of my schedule, run through all of my algorithms, spitting out everything here. So you've heard me talk about the schedule, the scheduling source. That's an extremely important point that I want to get to. We rely on your schedule as the main source of data to run the tool. We need that data from somewhere, whether it's Project Server or some other scheduling tool. We then ingest that, pull that in, and that's the basis for all the data that you're seeing here today. So that can be an automated connection. We can easily connect to Project Server or any of those other systems, assuming that they allow data connections, and pull that in, in some automated cadence, nightly, weekly, whatever. We have the ability for manual uploads. If you're on a weekly cadence, but there's an updated schedule, you could pull it out of whatever system by CSV and just do a one-off upload so you have the most recent version. But that is a fundamental piece of this, is that we need that scheduling data. So let's talk about one other thing I wanted to show here. So you've got all your data sets, and I'll go back up to my top level here and show everything. Let's reset. You've got all your data here, right? I have the ability to show multiple data sets at the same time. So right now I'm just showing my forecasted demand, but on top of that, let's put a head count. So now you can see I have the second data set on top of my demand, and this is a head count file that's added onto here, and I can kind of change how it looks, right? I have it as a line chart. I can show it as a bar chart. I have a couple options here. I think the line looks best. Again, that's a lot of data. So let's just narrow this down to CRA. So here we can see now head count versus demand in one chart. I can even add a tertiary data set, a third data set on top of this. If I had a set of actuals, I could add actuals on top of this. If I had a financial baseline, I could drop that on top of it and show all three at once. So that's pretty interesting and pretty easy to be able to set all those up together. So I want to kind of switch gears and talk about scenarios real quick, and then I'll come back and drop a scenario right on top of this view. So scenarios is a really cool feature where we have the ability to make a copy of our current schedule and then change it in a sandbox environment. So here you can see a series of scenarios that I've already created or other people have created in here. I'm gonna start one from scratch here. So create a scenario. We'll call this webinar June 25, and I pick which schedule I want to make a copy of. I'll just pick a copy of whatever our default one is that we're using in the main tool. And there, now I have a copy of my schedule in my sandbox. So if I take a look at it, I'll take a second to load the file. You can see that this is kind of a standard Gantt chart that you would expect to see in a schedule, right? Here's all my studies on the left. You get the bar to show exactly where the studies are happening over time. And then at the bottom, let me open up my panel here so you can see. I have the menu panel here. I'm going to hide the head count. At the bottom, I have a demand curve. This is a sum of all my demand over time across this whole time frame for all these studies. So what we're looking at here, like I said, is a copy of our current schedule. This line at the bottom, you can't see it because nothing's changed yet, but it's actually two lines. It's the original schedule and then the scenario overlaid on top of each other. Now they're the exact same schedule, so they're projecting the exact same demand. But here in the sandbox, in my scenario, I'm going to start changing things. I'm going to take a study. I'm going to change when it occurs. I'm going to start dragging these to the right a little bit. Move my time frame. Right? All these studies got pushed later in time for some unknown reason. And you can start to see my lines diverge down here in my demand because I've changed my schedule. You can see my original against my scenario. I'm showing my total demand at the moment. Let me just show one roll. I always pick on CRA. So here, you can really see the difference between my regular demands, my current schedule demand, and my scenario demand as I change all these. You really see the lines start to diverge. Maybe I need to even make more granular changes so I can open up one of these studies, and instead of changing, the whole thing start to finish, I can actually just change the activities themselves. I can change the length of time that they happen, right? This one's actually longer. It's going to start earlier, right? So I can drag all these things around and make really granular or really broad edits and see how that affects my demand. I have the ability to select one of these studies and remove it from my sandbox scenario. Remove a couple of these, you get the idea. I can duplicate, right? So let's say I have some new studies coming that I really want to model. Perfect example would be COVID-19 studies that everyone's trying to rush right now. Those probably weren't on your schedule 6 months ago, but I can add them in as duplicates in my sandbox here. Make a couple copies of new studies, change their time frames to show that they're happening right now, and see what that does to my demand. All right, so I've created my scenario. I've made all these changes I'm interested in seeing. I can see that things diverge. That's great. What do I do with it now? Publish it. And we called this webinar June 25. All right, so now I publish that as its own schedule. So this is now its own kind of separate data set that lives inside the tool. So here are all my schedules that I have available. You can see here's my current default schedule. This is what I was showing you on the demand tab. And this is the scenario schedule that I just created. So let me generate some projections for it. So I have the data set to work with. So you can see how quick that was. It took 0.8 seconds to generate my entire set of projections. So now I have two data sets. So if I go back to my demand screen, I can add now a third data set on top of what I was reporting. So you can see here's all my schedules. I can pick that scenario, if I can remember what I called it, webinar. There you go, June 25. Now that's a lot of data. on top of each other. So again, this is our current schedule on top of our head count, on top of a scenario that I just made some changes to. It's kind of a crazy color setting here. Let's look at just one role again. So here's our 3 data sets on top of each other. We have the head count, which is that top line. The second line is, or the lighter color, is our primary data set, our actual, source of truth schedule. And then this darker block is our scenario that we just created. So, I mean, that took me, what, 5 minutes to create a whole scenario and then be able to model it against our current schedule and see where my demand changes over time. That's just a really powerful way to, model what ifs inside this tool without, monkeying around with your source of truth inside your scheduling system. So those were the main topics I really wanted to get to today. I think this is a good time to kind of pause and see if Greg has any questions that have come in that we can kind of address here in the last couple minutes. Greg?
Thanks, Andy. So far, it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, and someone might be typing there. So go ahead and submit any questions you have using the toolbar on the right. It should be a section there, questions. So the first one is, can I create roles that are specific to my company, or do I have to pick them from a standard roles list?
Right. Okay, that's a really good question. In the half-hour webinar, it's tough to show all the settings in here. At the beginning, I kind of showed all our configuration options. One thing that I really want to stress is this tool is designed to be incredibly easy to use. So almost everything you see, all the terminology, all the hierarchy is completely flexible and can be customized to your organization. So roles that you can use, there's an organization tab here where I can customize my roles, right? Here's all my organizations, here's my departments inside those. Here are the roles that I'm modeling. I can click in any one of these and just change the name to anything I want. It's that easy to change. I can add a new role. Call a new role goalie. And I'll put it in it seems like a statistics department role. I'll add that there. So now I have a new role that can be, that's from your organization, and I can create an algorithm and off of to figure out how much work a goalie does. But this is completely customizable and flexible. We can model anything. We can call it whatever you want. We can name it whatever you want. It's all inside here, easy to change. That was a really good question. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Next question is regarding scenario planning. You showed the scenario planning functionality, but if we have different books of business scenarios that we create in our own timeline management system, can we view those side by side in this tool?
Yeah, that's a good question too. So I kind of glossed over this quickly. In my schedules configuration page here, these are all the different schedules that have already been added to the tool. Now, many of these are just, as you go along, right? You have a schedule in September, you have one in October, you have one in November, and so on, right? So it's a regular updating as time passes. But there's also the scenario published schedules in here. So that's another data set. You could pull in baseline data sets, right? So you take a Q3 or Q4 baseline snapshot of your schedule. It's going to have the same format as a regular schedule, and you save it here. So you can always compare your current to your baseline at any given time. If you do scenario planning in a different tool, right? Any kind of alternate schedule can be added here and then held up in the demand section, because we have this ability to show 3 data sets simultaneously. You could have your default schedule, a baseline schedule, and then some scenario schedule all on top of each other, and really see where the differences lie. So if it's a data set that is in a schedule form, we can definitely pull it in and show it in the tool.
Thank you. Hopefully that answers your question. Again, if you need more detail, please submit another question. The last one we have here is regarding demand forecast. How do you determine the demand forecast, in addition to the timeline data, do we have to provide assumptions, or does your tool determine the assumptions based on the current resource allocations in the project plan?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. So we didn't really dig into how the algorithms themselves are constructed, but the schedule that would come from you would include, studies and activities happening in those studies. So, there's enrollment and there's treatment and there's closeout and there's startup and whatever the activities are. Again, that's completely customizable and flexible. We would then create this table that you see here, this allocations table that includes a role, statistician, and an activity during startup, and then a series of FTE rates, FTE values in here you can see there's a low, medium, and high values. So this table is something that we would need that gets created in the tool. So this is a combination again of activities and roles from you that you want to model, and then these algorithm rates that could come from you, could come from time tracking data that you have historically. We have a lot of experience with all these roles and modeling algorithms. We can help set these up. But yes, once that gets those assumptions, as you gets put in this table in this tool, this is what the schedule gets filtered through. These are the equations that run against it to generate those demand numbers that you see. There's a lot of detail to kind of get into the algorithms themselves, and there's levels of complexity and custom algorithms in here, and you can program all of that in here as well. That's probably best saved for maybe a one-on-one demo if someone wants to see more. But that's a really good question. This is this algorithm engine part of the tool is kind of a key part. So if you'd like to see more, please let us know.
Right, definitely. And as I mentioned in the beginning, this is part one of a two-part series. When we get into the capacity planning, that's where we can show a lot more of the algorithms. In addition to the complexity factors, which is the easy way to do it, there's definitely a much more robust algorithm engine that can pretty much use any formula that you can think of, and you can tailor it by role, as Andy had shown. Andy, we got. I know we're out of time, but we did get one last question,
Sure.
and if I can squeeze it in here, can your product handle simultaneous users across the business functions?
Yes. So, since it's cloud-based and there's no file that you need to lock like you do in some of the other tools, we handle multiple people at the same time simultaneously. If someone is actually clicked in a cell, if I've clicked in this cell and I'm trying to edit data, someone else will not be able to do that simultaneously. But certainly, users consuming the reports, consuming the data tables, absolutely can use this simultaneously. And even administrators, making changes can do it, as long as they're not trying to simultaneously change the same cell. It'll just be unable to click. You'll be unable to click into it if there's if they're trying to do that at the same time. But yes, it handles, really as many as your network can handle. That's what we can handle inside the tool.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Andy, and thank you, everyone. We're 2 minutes over now, but I wanted to thank you for joining us today. Please mark your calendars for September 9th for part 2. And this has been recorded, and everyone will receive a link to the recording afterwards. So if you want to rewatch or share with your colleagues, please do so. Other than that, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Bye.